When I was a young man, my dad really wanted me to take over his family business. When he was ready to retire, he would hand over the reins and I would proudly ride into the sunset. So that meant that I had to prepare a certain way, study a certain way, work with him for many years. And unfortunately, none of that intrigued or enticed me. I wanted to live a completely different life. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be on Broadway. Sadly, that didn't work out either. And if there are Broadway opportunities out there, I'd consider them. But having to say no to my dad, having to say, I have a dream of what my life will look like, and I respect everything you've built, and it's not that. It was a really, really hard conversation. It was a really hard moment, and it felt to me like I was really disappointing him. Our question today revolves exactly around this, about the expectations our parents have of our life and of the way we choose or don't choose to satisfy those expectations. I'm Mauricio Bruce, and this is The Real Question. Hi, Stefanie. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Mauricio. Thank you so much for having me.
I am delighted to be talking to you, and I'm really excited to see where our conversation today is going to take us.
Me too. Thank you.
Before we begin the conversation that you've brought us, if you've been listening, you know that you have to answer one of my questions first.
I do.
And that's, if you could tell me anything about yourself, what would you like to share?
Okay, so obviously I've been giving this some thought, and I think the one thing that I'd like to share is that I absolutely love language, and it's in all its glorious facets. I love how language allows us to communicate, to express ourselves. I obviously love talking about pretty much everything, I'd say, with pretty much everyone. But by trade, I'm also a classical philologist, so I love how language works. I love how this is such a quintessential human trait. I'm fascinated by etymology. I love neologisms. I love all the quirky, tiny parts about how human beings use language to communicate and how language evolved over time. And I just think it's the greatest thing to ever happen to us.
So can we just talk about this for the full hour?
I mean, I'd love to. People tend to sort of check out of the conversation once I bring up the Latin and Greek texts, but if you'd like, I'm absolutely game, yes.
No, what I would like, share like one of your favorite, what's one of your favorite words? Like if you wanted to show me something about language, what would you share?
Right. So one of the most fascinating things I think that I recently stumbled upon, which isn't an English etymology, that English is not my first language, obviously. So how articles and words merge together at some point in the development of the English language. For example, an apron that we now use as an apron. So we use the N, as sort of a marker that the word starts with a vowel. It used to be a napron. And an apron is thus actually etymologically connected to a nappy or a napkin. So just a piece of cloth. And just because people kept saying it so quickly, they kept saying like an apron, an apron, an apron, and it sort of developed into an apron. Umpire came about in a very similar way. It used to be a non-peer, so someone who's not one of your peers, so someone who can judge you and your peers. And just by saying it quick enough for a certain number of years, or centuries rather, it just became this fascinating word that no one really knows the origins of, but me and a few other select nerds.
Well, now all our listeners know, and I think that's really cool.
Well, if that's the one thing that I brought to the podcast today, it already made me very happy.
I have a suspicion that that's not the only thing that you'll be bringing today. So how about you tell us what's the question that you've brought us?
Right. So the question I'm bringing today is, should I let my parents buy me a flat? And first of all, I think I'd like to say that I'm fully aware that this is the most first world problem question to ever exist. So just for some context, I have a little sister who's quite a bit younger than I am. She got married last year. She's now expecting her first child with her husband. And my parents decided to gift her and her husband my late grandma's house, who passed away last year. And while all this was happening, my parents have offered to buy a flat for me to sort of make things fair, I think, just from a financial standpoint. I'm really grateful for that offer, but so far there are things that have kept me from accepting this gift or this offer.
Okay. Thank you for this question. First of all, to offer to buy you a flat is a great, beautiful sentiment and a beautiful thing for them to offer. And I'm curious, what's making you uncomfortable? What's sort of making a space there that you think, I'm not immediately sure. I need to ask this question.
Right. So I think there's two main aspects that are keeping me from just only being grateful about the offer and accepting it straight away. One of them is just related to my own life. I'm not currently living in the city that I'd like to live in or stay in for the rest of my life, but to be honest, probably not even for the foreseeable future. It's nice enough. I've lived here for a couple of years now, but I have none of the big parts that make up a life that I'd wish for myself. I have 2 jobs here, but both are temporary, so they'll probably run out in a year or two. I have made friends. I've made good friends, but they're not really this close-knit circle of friends that I ideally want in my life. I don't have a partner here. And in addition to that, I've always thought that I'd move back to the city that I went to university in, which is about 100 kilometers from where I live now, which is a city I absolutely love. I loved living there. I still have a really great group of friends there and quite an established social network. So I always thought I was going to go back there. And so far in my life, the opportunity hasn't presented itself, and I haven't really pursued the opportunity actively, I think, to move back. But this is still a plan I have in the back of my mind. So buying a flat here in the city that I'm currently in isn't actually not something I'd want, I think. So that's the first part, which is just how my life is at the moment. But the second part, I think, which complicates the entire situation, is that my relationship with my parents is not entirely easy.
Okay, thank you for sharing those 2 things. And so let's explore them each separately. And let's start with, they're going to buy me a flat, not in the city where I want to be. And so I'm curious, if you had a flat here, does it feel like it would trap you or would hold you to the city because this is a gift? Or what? Tell me more about this.
In short, yes, that is exactly what it feels like. Living here has always felt like a temporary thing, which unfortunately I have to admit that I've been here for almost 7 years now. So I'm not sure it's still fair to call this a temporary situation, but I think that is part of it. If I owned a flat here, which I think that owning real estate in Germany and maybe in Europe in general might be different from how it is in America, then if you own real estate here, you move in and you pretty much stay there. This is not like a buying and selling type of market. So once you own a flat, which pretty much no one my age can afford anymore, this is not really a thing that people can do, buy a flat for themselves. It usually means that this is where you settle down.
Okay.
And I don't think I'm ready to do that here.
Okay, so that was my question. You can't use it as an investment. Like, I'm going to turn it into a rental property and I'm going to have a place where I can make some passive income.
I guess technically I could. I think the issue would be that it would be hard to manage if I were to move away from here, right? Because you need someone close by to just manage the place. And I'm not sure that this is something that my parents would be into, to be honest.
So that was my second question, or my follow-up, which is the relationship that you said isn't easy. Do you want to talk about any details about why it isn't easy?
Right. So I think the main point is that my family and I live very different lives. My parents have a fairly traditional marriage. They have a fairly traditional outlook on life and what life should look like, I think. And my sister, in a way, is living exactly that life. So, the whole marriage, kids, dog, family van, house, stable job type thing. Whereas I feel like I've spent the major part of being a grown-up trying to build a life where I don't have to rely on my parents for financial support. I've chosen a career first in science. So I became a classical philologist. I studied Latin, ancient Greece, and ancient history at university. And then I taught at university for a couple of years. And when I turned 30, I changed careers and went back to uni or back to conservatory to become a classical opera singer. So I now work part-time as an opera singer at the theatre in the city that I live in. And with the other part of my career, I've just started getting my PhD in Latin philology. So these are the two fields I chose, which I absolutely love, but which, spoiler, does not make a lot of money. So it's not like my parents were opposed to choosing this lifestyle, but I don't think it's what they imagined my life would look like. And the fact that I chose jobs that require me to move a lot obviously have shaped my entire life. I think that contributed to me not having like a stable sort of job, relationship, family situation.
First of all, opera singer, and you didn't share this at the beginning. This is amazing. There's something about continually looking and searching and finding those careers and those things that move you that I quite identify with. And so hearing that, you went into philology and you said, this is my passion. And then you said, wait, there's this other passion and I'm going to dive right into it. And now I'm going to juggle both. I think that's quite beautiful. And I feel that there is a little bit of, I'm going to ask, is there a little bit of guilt at having chosen those careers and being dedicated so much to these things that you love?
I don't think it's guilt so much as, I want to say regret. But even that is not entirely true. I think both is true. I'm very happy that I've actually found two careers or two fields of study, I'd say, that I feel so passionate about and that I really enjoy doing, that I feel I'm more like paid hobbies than what having a real job, which I have done years and years, has felt like to me. So I think on the one hand, I have chosen a life and built a life that very much reflects who I am as a person and that reflects my interests and my passions. And on the other hand, part of me is afraid that my parents are right, that I will regret this, that I will wish I had partnered up earlier in life or settled down, or part of me wishes I had a circle of friends that I met at uni and that I've been friends with for 20 years now, which just didn't happen because I moved so much and I changed my social circles quite a lot due to this career change. Mm-hmm. So I think it's not guilt. I think it's fear.
Yeah, beautiful. And you've said so many things in what you just said that I think I want to talk about. You said, I just have these two great hobbies. I don't have a real job like my parents want me to. And so I'm wondering, just because you talked about the traditional life that your parents imagined, the traditional life that your sister is living, the life that they imagined you would be living too. Because you're not living that life, you're living this life of music and theater and words and language. And in a way, by living that life you're loving, you're defying their expectations and you're defying what they had said you should be living. And so by living this life that you're loving, you are rebelling against your parents. You're rebelling against their vision of your life and their expectations of your life.
That's what I feel like a lot of the time. They've always, wanted grandchildren, which I have decided not to have my own kids long before I felt the time running out in a way. So this is not due to not being partnered now. But yes, I feel like I am, to quote Jane Austen, I am a bit of a burden on my parents. I feel like they have to worry about me.
I mean, and in the way you're sort of building this image for us, here you are exploring the world of language and the world of music, And here they are going, "Oh, Stefanie, please just come back. You'll be okay. We'll take care of you. Come back. Come back. You know what? Here's a flat. Come back." Or at least that's how you
Yes.
feel it.
That is, I mean, I was going to use the phrase strings attached because that is what it feels like. It feels like they are and have always been very generous towards us. So this is not, they're not using it as an official bribe or anything. But when we first talked about this option of them buying a flat for me, I think my father said, "So is this where you'll stay?" And this sentence just triggered all sorts of fears. Like, I don't know. I can't say if I get a job, I don't know, in Edinburgh, which is where I always wanted to live, in 2 years, I will literally go there, you know? So I do feel guilty and maybe even a bit ashamed that at almost 38, I don't know what my life will look like in 2 years.
At almost whatever age, I've never known what my life will look like in 2 years.
That's actually really helpful. I mean, I love meeting people who are sort of at the same stage or have a similar feeling about their life and their life decisions, but it's not that common.
I understand, because I think the society we live in tells us, hey, here's the recommended route. This is what you should do to live a good and comfortable life.
Yes.
And I think some of us just, because of our position in the world, because of our sexuality, because of our political opinions, because of however we think or we see, or we can't fit into that structure. And we go, you know what? I'm going to have to sort of carve my own path. And I don't know what that'll look like in 2 years.
And I'm totally with you. And I mean, this is what I tell my students when they come and ask me for advice. And I am the biggest advocate for exactly this kind of outlook on life. And part of the guilt and the shame that I feel around how I live my life is that I feel like because I get this privilege of choosing jobs that I love and changing my mind whenever I feel like it, I feel like I should be much happier than I am. You kept using the phrase, "and you're loving your life," which to a certain extent is true. I love parts of my life. Other parts, the fact that I feel lonely a lot of times because I've moved so much. The fact that I do find it hard to build both romantic relationships and just friendships because of my sort of unstable lifestyle. These are things that I'm sad about. And I think there's a guilt around feeling sadness in such a privileged life that whenever I talk about it with strangers, I think a lot of people look at as if it were the ideal. Like, you're following your passions, you're doing exactly what you've always wanted to do, which is great. And there's an entirely different side to it, which I don't think a lot of people see. Mm-hmm. There's parts of this life that are keeping me, I think, from following what would be good for me in other aspects. I think mainly relationships. And I think this is sort of the neuralgic point where I have internalized maybe my parents' fear about me.
So do you agree with your parents on this point?
I'm not sure. I'm afraid they're right, I think. And for such a long time, I've just rejected what they thought and said about me because they said it. But now that I'm actually living this life, I see that there is some truth to what they've been telling me. I think being in community and having a stable social network, which includes friends but might include a partnership, is actually something that I think I've underestimated. I think I have built a life that is very independent. I do everything myself. I can do a lot of things by myself, which I'm really proud of. And it also means I have to do everything by myself, and I'd rather not. And admitting that to my parents is absolutely impossible.
So building this very independent life where you're able to do whatever it is that you wanted to do and live the things that you wanted to live has also created some independence in other areas, which you're not so happy to be independent in.
Yes.
It has some costs.
Yes.
But you've also identified what those costs are. And you're telling me, I want more community. I want more friends. I want a partnership, possibly.
Yes. Ideally, yes.
Okay. So I'm wondering, and I just want to ask this, Stefanie, because when you said in your mind some years ago, you know what? They want me to live that traditional life. That's not what I want. This is what I'm going to build. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to do language, and then I'm going to do music, and then I'm going to do back to language, and then I'm going to juggle them, and then I'm... When you built that life, there was a fierceness that I'm reading from you that you needed to do it on your own because they weren't going to help you.
Yes. Or I think they would have helped me, but even just asking them for help, I think would have taken sort of admitting that I made the wrong choice in a way.
Oh.
So saying, well, it felt like it's an either-or situation. I can either do exactly what I want to do, and then I'd have to do it myself because there's no wiggle room for admitting doubt or fear or, or I could choose the traditional route, and then I'd be allowed all the doubt in the world, and I'd be allowed to ask for all the help in the world.
Mm-hmm. They would help you with all your doubts and all your problems.
Yeah, and I think that they'd be happy to help me with it as well. Mm.
Okay, but I think that what you're saying right there is sort of the rub of this whole question and of this whole situation.
I'm afraid you're right. Yes. But then how do I get out of it?
So a part of it is coming to terms with the life that you've wanted to create and with your success in creating that life, but then also sort of lowering your defenses so that other people can approach you within that life.
I think that is true. I have done stupid things to assure that I wouldn't have to ask people for help. I've screwed things to my walls that were not supposed to be screwed in by one person, holding the shelf and holding the screwdriver and everything else. So I do think this might be the abstract of what I've been talking about, yes.
Right, like I need to prove to the world that I can do this was Stefanie's sort of inner compass. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to prove to them that I can do it, and I'm going to prove to them that I can be happy, and that I can be good, and that I can be safe, and that...
Yes.
So I'm wondering if your parents were seeing you singing and exploring language, but also surrounded with friends who are helping you screw things in at your apartment and who come on Sundays to watch your dog while you go sing. And would your parents think, she hasn't done it. She's got all those people who help her?
I don't think so. I think they'd still, to be entirely honest, unless I'm married and have a child, I don't think anything I build in my life and all the friendships I have in my life would make my parents believe that I'm happy. Mm-hmm. It's not so much about actually living the life that they'd like me to live. It's about proving to them that I can happy an entirely different life. But in their definition of happiness, there's no leeway.
Mm-hmm. Their definition of happiness is a husband and a child.
Yes, and stability.
As you understand it, yeah.
And responsibility. Mm.
And so in a way, that's what the flat represents.
I think it does. I think in the relationship between my parents and I, it represents my willingness to settle down, to make a decision and stick with it, to not put my needs, my interests first.
To put theirs.
I don't think they necessarily expect me to put their interests first, but I think there is a right kind of interest, and I don't think it's mine. Or I think it's not mine.
Which one is it? And if it's not theirs, you said either.
I think it's one with less resistance. I feel like I've been stuck in rebellion to a point where I actually willingly gave up on things that would have made me happy, or that will, I think, make me happy once I start building them, just because it feels like you can have the one or the other. I didn't have a role model or just people in my life who managed to live a bit of both worlds, who managed to have a family and a flat and a community, and yet were open to the world and pursued their own interests and followed their passions, traveled a lot. I think it's felt like an either or decision for me.
Yes. Like, and you're feeling right now like you're at the decision point. I have to choose over there or I have to choose over here. It's the same right now. Yeah.
In a way, yes. Yes.
I really appreciate what you brought up. There's people who can do it both, who have had this life and who have had that life. And I've rebelled so much that I haven't been able to build some of those bridges to that other life where I could be a philologist and I could have a community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so now that you're here with what you've built, and you can also see and tell, and there are things that I haven't built that I haven't focused on that I would like.
Mm-hmm.
Now we look back at your parents' requests. Here's the life that we would like for you.
Mm.
And what do you see? There are parts of what they wanted for you that did have wisdom.
Yes.
And in your bid for independence and for building the life that you wanted, you pushed some of those away.
Yes.
And that was important for you at the moment. But I think now, in this place where you're standing, where you see your achievements and your accomplishments, and you see some of the places that feel a little empty, where you go, this is hard. I don't like this.
Mm-hmm.
You can realize that some of those pieces that you're missing are the pieces that your parents offered.
That feels uncomfortable. Yes. Yeah, I think that's a great summary of how I'm feeling. Mm-hmm.
And so tell me why it feels uncomfortable to say yes to that.
Well, it feels uncomfortable because I feel like I'm imagining sort of the worst case in a way. if I brought a man home to my parents and said, actually, we're going to have a child, my parents would be so happy, but they'd also be gloaty, I think. I think there would be a part in them, or I imagine, maybe I'm misjudging them. I think that's totally possible that they'd actually just be happy. But I think that I'm just afraid they say, well, we always knew that this was not going to be the life that would make you happy. And finally, you've come around and finally you've seen the wisdom. And here's a flat, which is also in the city that we live in. And this is the house next door that we bought for you. And build a garden and, ferment your own vegetables just like we do. And this is the life it would make me. And to be honest, having a house in the garden and fermenting my own vegetables sounds absolutely lovely. But this scenario makes me feel small.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like this image that I've created of myself to myself, of being entirely independent and having and developing my own values and my own way of living my life.
And we're still in an either or scenario, right? Black or white. It's either this that I've built or that they want.
Yeah, I'm coming to see that. Yes, I didn't before, but.
But there's also a story playing in your head that says your parents are going to gloat and they're going to go, haha, we always knew it. Come back home. Here's the house. Now go inside and, I don't know, start fermenting vegetables.
Put on your napron. Yes.
Put on your napron. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then the consequence will be I have wasted 15 years of my life. Or 20 years of my life even.
Wait, pause. How?
Because the thing that I have deemed the worst thing to possibly happen to me turns out to be the thing that I actually want.
And we're back to black or white, either or, right? It would mean that
I can hear myself, and I'm not proud. But yes, it seems to be the way I think. Well, that's news.
So, Stefanie, you've built this life for yourself that you're really proud of, and you've accomplished things that you're really proud of. And you're also showing that there are things that you would want. And here are your parents offering some of the things that you would want.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way in Stefanie, in this strong, independent person, that you've told me you are, is there a way to accept that gift under your own terms or in your own terms? Or is that not possible? Is it I either accept it or I reject it? Could you say, I need a couple of years to find the right place to live in, the right place to settle down in. And when you find it, say, hey, I found the place. Can I accept that gift now?
I guess there would be a sort of middle ground, which might be to look for a flat in the town that I went to university in, to buy a flat there, rent it out now, and move into this flat once I'm ready to move there, or keep renting it out, to just get, as you mentioned at the beginning, you get the passive income now, but sort of keep this option open, or even building a sort of safe harbor for me in this city that I'd love to eventually return to. I guess that would be an option. I think it would be impractical. I don't think it would be impossible.
And does it feel really uncomfortable?
It feels uncomfortable because it doesn't feel like a wise decision to make. The alternative, frankly, would be to just push back buying a flat until I have found somewhere to live forever. And who knows if that's going to happen, So there is a scenario in which I will never be ready to buy a flat, because I will never be ready to know that this is where I'll stay for the next, 40 to 100 years, depending on how modern medicine works out. So I think I'd have to take active steps towards this. I don't think it's going to happen for me. I'd have to choose to either stay here where I have a job, and this might be a job that I can build on, or I'd have to choose to move back to my university town and then figure out the job situation from there. But the idea of making an informed choice one way or the other feels really good.
When you say the idea of making an informed choice feels really good, tell me what that life looks like.
I think if this is like a dream life we're talking about, I think what I choose right now would be actually maybe buying a house with a friend, moving in there, or even with multiple friends, building a community, or investing in multi-generational living situation where I'd have my own flat or living space, but also share parts of this life with other people that I'm close to, or just to live in community. It would be a life in which I might ferment my own vegetables and bake my own sourdough bread and, be connected to nature, and where I'd have my own working space where I could keep the flexibility job-wise that I have now and that I've built. I do really enjoy the freedom that I have in my work. And it would be a life where I can build on those passions and be part of your community. And yes.
Yeah, that's a life where your accomplishments and your job continue to be, and where you pull some of those pieces that you've heard your parents talk about and add them to your current life. It's not an either or situation. It's an and situation.
Right. Yes. Admittedly, it is an and situation.
And so it makes me wonder, if we go back to the question at the beginning, should I let my parents buy me a flat? With this idea that we just landed on, what does that question feel like?
Feels like a question that I can't answer right now, because I don't think that I know which kind of flat this would be and what kind of role it would play in my life. But it feels like it's a question or an offer that I should no longer resist out of principle. It feels like it should feel like a privilege or a great opportunity for me to build this life that I'm imagining for myself.
I think that's a very wise answer. So I think this is a conversation that needs to continue playing in your head, that needs to keep developing, and that you need to sort of keep thinking about and keep imagining. Because I think this life that you're building can't just be decided when your parents offer you a flat.
I agree. And this is a conversation that I have to keep revisiting. But I got great wise pointers today and great questions. That it's really great to get feedback from people who are not that involved in my life and don't actually know me that well.
You mean non-peers?
Oh, the pun. No, I take it. And I trust you will spread this knowledge of where the umpire word comes from to all your peers and non-peers in the future.
Thank you, Stefanie. This has been The Real Question. Our show is funded through our Patreon at patreon.com/realquestionpod. If you're a regular listener, we would love your support. Come check out all the perks that we have at Patreon. Another way you can support this show is by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Reviews are so important to get the show to other listeners and to other people. So come on, stop by and leave us a review. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Real Question Pod. We are always looking for more guests. So if you have a question, go to our website, realquestionpod.com, and submit it. I would love to talk to you on the show. We love to shout out our BFF tier patrons, Renee Underhill and Amanda Schramm. Thank you. We are Not Sorry Production. Our executive producer is Vanessa Zoltan. We are edited and produced by Ariana Nettleman. Music is by Nick Bowl. And we're distributed by Acast. Support for this show comes from the Fetzer Institute. And thanks as always to our wonderful team, Julia Argy, Nikki Zoltan, AJ Yaramas, Anissa Ahmed, Danny Langley, Courtney Brown, Casper Turkile, and Stephanie Paulsell. This has been one more episode of The Real Question. Join us next week for a new question, a new guest, and a new conversation. See you then.